This region around the Great Lakes has been called the heartland of America. When it comes to agriculture, there's hardly an area in the world that compares to it. And no one knows this better than those of us who live here.
The Midwest is an area that has a good soil, has basically adequate rainfall. The interstate highway system, of course, cuts across it both directions through the Midwest. And we've got a rail system which has been important over the years. The access to world markets down the Mississippi River, through the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Seaway, the Chicago port. It all combines just to make it a region the world couldn't do without. Over the years, of course, it's been populated by what I choose to think are some of the most efficient people in the world, the family farmer. I was born and raised on a farm. I don't think I ever had any doubt in my mind what I wanted to do. From the time I was old enough to understand that you had to do something, I wanted to be in agriculture and I wanted to farm. My wife, Jeanette, has shared in the work and the responsibility and do everything that's necessary to be done to keep the business going.
Well, this time of year is our busiest time of year, especially since spring. On account of the harvest, it's rush. You got to work while the sun shines and make every hour count. I believe that's the biggest part of it. You have to be able to do about anything and like it, or you just don't like being on a farm.
I know when she worked out with me, there's no time that you feel any closer than there is when you work together throughout the day. My oldest son is Gordon. He's 19 years old, out of high school, and he is here at home farming. Quinn is also just finished school this year. He's 18 years old, and he also is here helping in the operation of the farm. Sandy Kay is a first grader. She's all enthused about everything around the farm and just has a big time everywhere. Randy is a freshman in high school. And of course, he, at this stage, thinks he wants to be a farmer, and we'll wait and see in a few years. Randy knows what goes on in my business, where as a boy, and where his father doesn't work close to home, or the boy never sees his father work, he doesn't realize what's involved in the business. And I think it tends to make a closer relationship, one that we take for granted, I guess, by and large, just our way of life. We're rather diversified. We do raise some cattle. We have a cow herd. This year we're growing about 450 acres of corn and 250 acres of soybeans, and we had a little wheat. The hog business in particular has been good to us, so we like to raise livestock. It's been a good industry for us in terms of income.
Selling livestock provides a big part of the income for many farmers in the central part of the Midwest. But the work doesn't end when a truckload of hogs is sent off to market. There's always more to do. If it's anything, life on a farm is long days and early mornings.
We start out in the morning, a little after daylight, I guess, with our chores at home. And normally on bean harvest, the last few days at least, we quit about 9 o'clock at night. By that time of evening, this time of year, usually the beans are too wet to harvest from the night dew. In corn harvest, we might run later than that. It kind of depends on just, the kind of season we have and if we're really crowded for getting the work done. You're always thinking ahead, how do I keep everybody going tomorrow? Which job do we do? Who's going to sow wheat, and who's going to disc, and who's going to haul beans, and who's going to cut beans? What have I got to do at home with the livestock? You think of a lot of things.
One of the big factors I guess I have to constantly think of is the management of capital. The tremendous amounts of capital, or at least it seemed tremendous to me, that we're contending with today compared to 15 or 20 years ago.
It takes a lot of money to run a modern farm. In the early days, things were simpler and cheaper. They say it took a man, 2 boys, and a horse to make an old-time farm pay. Then came complex machines and new discoveries in the science of growing things. All that cost more money, but the result was more food. The amount of grain that comes to our giant storage elevators has increased unbelievably in only a few generations.
My dad ran a country elevator. It was a little elevator that we had 40,000 bushel of storage. Now today that elevator has nearly 1 million bushel of storage. Corn's down about 4 cents and the beans are down about 10. It's been down all morning long. So right now I've been in the grain business approximately 40 years, I guess. At the time we started raising soybeans, 17 to 20 bushel per acre was a good crop. Now an average crop is in the neighborhood of 50 bushel. We buy the grain here. It comes in, we weigh it, grade it, and pay for it here at the country station. The more that a farmer can produce, the more money he makes.
I have to ask myself, is the price going to be over a period of years and over an average sufficiently high? If I'm not certain of a good return on that, one that'll keep me in business and pay my bills, plus pay the cost of production for feed, medications, and all the everyday costs that go into it.
I definitely think the farmers are doing a better job of farming now because they have bigger equipment, increased techniques and fertilizer, and better hybrids, better seeds.
We're at the University of Illinois agronomy farm, standing in the middle of a soybean breeding field. By that we mean this is a field where new varieties are developed. The soybean breeder fits in between the soybean grower, the farmer who grows the crop soybeans, and the processor that buys the crop and puts it to use. We listen to both of these people. The farmer, what are the production problems he has? Of course, we know he wants more yield per acre. This is for the same cost, the same amount of land, the same expended effort. If he gets more soybeans, that's going to be more profit for him. We talk to the processor, and we know he wants more oil, he wants higher protein, he may want a little higher quality protein. So we must also develop varieties that have the type of characteristics that the user of the soybean wants. In many areas of the Midwest, corn is the #1 crop, soybeans close behind. So we're largely a cash grain economy here, with the 2 grains being corn and soybeans.
Livestock and grain production are big in the central and southern portions of the Midwest. The north is dairy country.
We have a shorter growing season, of course, being further north, but that doesn't bother us too much. And livestock enterprises, of course, go along with the grazing type of land a lot better. To my knowledge, Wisconsin is #1 in dairy production of any state in the United States. And the majority of the milk coming from the farm goes into fluid milk. The other byproducts are whipping cream, half and half, cottage cheese, yogurt, ice cream, definitely. This is one of the reasons that dairying is so affluent here in Wisconsin.
I like to live on a dairy farm. It's a place where a lot of exciting things happen, and well, there's a lot of work to do, but I like it. Usually there's 3 people doing the milking. Cows are just normal to me. It's just black and white animals with 4 legs, and I don't know, they're just what I've lived with all my life. I have 1 cow that's mine. Her name is Heidi. She's such a big baby, I guess you could call her. She's spoiled. I'm feeding the calf right now. He's sucking milk out of the bottle. And up here by the nipple is there's an air hole for air to go in. And he just drinks it till it's gone. And I pull it out. and he's done. I just like making calves happy, I guess.
Farmers in all parts of the Midwest need markets to sell what they produce. Some products stay on the farm to feed farm families and their livestock. Others are sold nearby. But the food that comes from our region also goes to millions of people in the rest of the United States and around the world. This takes a special kind of marketplace. One of the biggest of these is the Board of Trade in Chicago.
Board of Trade provides a marketplace for buyers and sellers to come to trade their grain. The farmer comes here to sell his grain. The producer comes here to buy the grain so he can make his cereals and his breads and macaroni and things like this, or his margarine if he wants to buy soybean oil. I've been working here for about 7 years, and it's still like a zoo sometimes with all the activity. Prices have been going up today, and it's just because there's becoming a shortage of something that somebody wants. Different brokers have different hand signals to tell what they're going to buy or sell and what price, such as a quarter cent, or selling 10, or buying 10, half a cent, buying 20, or selling 20, or 3/4 of a cent, selling 25, or buying 25. This is in grains. And there's more complicated hand signals for different amounts when you get into larger amounts, and it gets pretty confusing.
When someone buys something, they are saying that they have a need for it. Say they need corn to make cornflakes. You can even make linoleum out of soybeans, you know. So people that use these kind of commodities to make their final product, they are the ones that come in here and use the market.
The Board of Trade deals in raw products. In manufacturing centers throughout our region, this raw material is turned into finished food.
Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, and the other Midwestern states, they grow wheat, oats, and corn, which enables manufacturers to come into this area and establish themselves and make it possible for people to be fed.
The local farmers are all accustomed to selling their grain to General Mills, and the prime time is in September when the big harvest is. We have sometimes a slack season in July. As the season ends in May and June, we have to make sure that we have enough grain stored to keep our lines going.
I'm a supervisor supervising both flour and cereal.
I want to make sure that the package is properly formed, it's properly closed, and that on the top there is the code date. And on this one, the code date is there. This lets anyone know who gets the packages that the product is fresh.
The productivity of our farms here in the Midwest is one of America's greatest achievements. But there are problems as agriculture continues to change. Since today more food can be grown on less land, many agricultural areas are being bought up for other uses, homes and factories and highways. Some farmers wonder, can we continue to feed a growing world population with less and less land? And what about higher costs? Deserted farmsteads remind us of families who are unable to keep up. What will be the future for our Midwestern family farms?
Not so many years ago, the tradition was to get out of agriculture if you could and find your way to the city. Depending on how you look at it, people either were crowded out of agriculture or they just got out of agriculture. One of the big drawbacks that American agriculture's had and the family farms had, in my opinion, has been the fact that basically every generation we start over again. So I've got to devise a way of bringing the boys into the operation here. They're highly interested now, and they're a big help. But some way or other, I've got to develop some way that they can become a part of it in a legal sense or something like that.
It's like to be a farmer, I guess, because really it's what you want to do is anytime you want to do it, you're your own boss. You don't have to do anything else. It's the life I was brought up with and I know how to do already, so that's, I guess, what I'll be. You're not only working for yourself, it's in farming you're feeding the whole world, really, and especially in these times. And I feel that's just one thing that you can really be proud of doing anytime.
The work is long and hard, and the risks are often high. But life on a Midwestern family farm has more than its share of rewards. We think there's something worth preserving here.
Everything right now that's on the table, as far as the potatoes and the green beans and the meat, it's all farm growing.
When you have a large volume of livestock around, the kids all grow up with seeing small animals born. You have deaths, of course, occasionally, and it's not a mystery to them. I think, for example, the renewing of the seasons is to me, symbolizes the beginning of things, and as we come into the harvest season, it's the winding up of the end that everything goes through. And I guess it's maybe more obvious to us than it is to other people. We're closer to nature, to the things that happen in nature, birth and death and the seasons as they change. It's it's kind of on a small scale what life's all about.